Hello everyone, my name is Vishali. I'm the assistant editor at CA Club India. So as we all know that lately the finance minister announced various changes in the direct tax while she was giving the details of the economic package. So today we are in conversation with CA Ujjwal, who will help us understand the implications of the changes announced by the finance minister. Ujjwal is a qualified chartered accountant as well as company secretary with his expertise in direct as well as indirect taxes. So, Ujjwal, one of the major relaxation that was given to the taxpayers was reduction in the TDS and TCS rates. The TDS and TCS rates have been reduced by 25% for the period 14th May 2020 to 31st March 2021. So, please tell us if this relaxation covers all the provisions of TDS. Also, what will be the possible implications of this particular change?
First of all, I would like to mention that the entire economic package was based on the principle of liquidity. The government felt that as the money rotation in the market has stopped, like obviously the supplies are not made, the business are not running, so money has squeezed into the economy.
Right.
And it was a pushing need. There was a pressing need for to infuse the liquidity into the market so that things could resume the operation. Okay, so this like reduction in TDS rates was seen as a like a fair one fair objective behind this reduction, that this would induce a liquidity of around 50,000 crores as the FMS said.
Right.
Moreover, moreover, I would like to add that this TDS reduction is for non-salaried resident people. So who are salaried, they are not getting this 25% relaxation, and also who are non-residents, they are not getting this rebate. And TDS on almost all the sections have flown, like the TDS rates range between 1 to 30%. So depending upon what your earlier rate was, it would be 20% lower of the other one. For example, like if you were deducted, the TDS was deducted on your receipts at the rate of 10%. So now it would be deducted at 7.5% and vice versa for all the things. Okay, so now I would like to mention that the basically the payments or the receipts for which this grant has not been added up, like 25% rebate has not been given, that is basically for as I mentioned, the salaried class, they have been excluded. Secondly, the NRIs, they have been excluded, or the
Yeah.
foreign remittances, they have been excluded. Third category is basically for the cash withdrawals. We
Mm-hmm.
all know that budget 2019 came up with a provision of TDS at the rate of 2% with effect from 1st of September 2019, where if the cash withdrawals exceeded 1 crore from a particular bank account, the account holder was liable to be deducted for 2% in excess of 1 crore that was withdrawn. So
Right.
this particular section has been kept as it is, and 25% rebate is not applicable. Therefore, the TDS under this provision would continue to be at 2% in wake of to promote e-payments and to like lower the incidence of cash in the economy. Okay, and for the other category, that was people who were under the higher tax, the like the incidence of TDS was higher on them because of non-furnishing of PAN or Aadhaar to the tax deductor. Okay, so
Right.
they were made liable to pay TDS at the rate of 20% or higher as was applicable to them. Sorry. So they continue to be governed by the same provisions, and 20% would keep on applying to them. Another category that have remained out of the purview under these provisions is the people who are getting income from winning from lotteries, quiz shows, crossword puzzles, horse races. The tax incidence continue to remain at 30%.
Right.
Now, now moving to the TCS provision, all the sections equally have gained the tax TDS rebate at the rate of 20, the rebate at the rate of 25%. Just one provision that was introduced from the budget 2020, that was to come in effect from 1st of October 2020, that was for foreign remittances that was made by the residents, and also for sale of foreign tour packages. So the TCS rate continues to remain what was like 5% that was in the budget 2020, and no relaxation has been given to them.
Given. Right.
Okay. And now moving to what would be the implication of this TDS reduction. We all know that self-assessment taxes have to be paid, and TDS reduction has in no regard that your total income tax on your total income has reduced. just government has deferred the tax collections, and the incidence on tax continue to accrue at the same rate as it was accruing before. Okay, so total self-assessment tax that was payable by you for the full financial year, that is 2020-2021, that continues to remain the same. Okay, so in this way, the self-assessed taxes that you were liable to pay to the government for this year would have
Mhm.
remained the same. But as this TDS and TCS rates have been reduced now, so less tax has been collected by the government. So you would
Right.
be like in a wake of payment of advance taxes in form that are payable from 15th June to 15th of March. Okay, in quarterly basis. So you would be induced to this situation of payment of advance taxes where the tax payments are 10,000 or above for all
Right.
the taxes alike. Okay. So this would be a major implication that we see from this TDS rebate, or else,
Uh,
uh, or else the interest and penalty under 234B and 234C would accrue to the taxpayer if he fails to pay these amounts.
Uh, so, Ujjwal, like you mentioned that the salaried individuals are not covered under the TDS relaxation, but we also know that the majority of TDS collection comes from the salaried individuals. So, taxpayers had a question in their mind after the announcement was made by the finance minister that why salaried individuals are not given any relaxation when it comes to TDS.
So, Vaishali, I would like to mention that the basic objective behind the reduction in TDS and TCS rates was to infuse liquidity. Okay, so in for the salaried individuals, the government did not, I mean, in a way, reduce those TDS rates. So this has a particular reason because TDS rates would not infuse much of liquidity into the section. So to that point, I would like to dissect the topic into two. That is for salaried people who were into government jobs or who were private employees who have been unaffected by any rate cut during COVID-19 breakdown. And the second would be the private individuals who have been like impacted due to this COVID-19 breakdown in a way like 15 to 20% of their salary has dropped away. So firstly, talking about the employees who were people who were under the government employees, or they were the people who were under the private sector whose salaries have not been reduced. So the position remains invariably the same as it was before the COVID-19 breakdown, because even then they were like paying the taxes as per their total income that was applicable, and so there would be no extension in the liquidity even if they are brought into the ambit of lower TDS of 25%. Next, talking about the people in the private sector whose salaries have dipped by 15 to 20%. So they were basically people who were earning higher slabs of income, like they were earning income of more than 30 to 40 lakhs or likewise. So their salary has basically dipped by 15 to 20% due to this COVID-19 breakout. So first of all, as their salaries were earlier higher, so a marginal cut down in their salary would not have reduced much of liquidity into their hands. Secondly, the TDS provisions that were earlier applicable to them, if like for example they were earning salary of 30 lakh, so that particular continue to remain the same. I mean the TDS would proportionately be lesser if their salary reduces. So therefore, the infusion of liquidity would not have been much higher in that case. So secondly, this was the reason behind why the TDS on salaried individuals have not been reduced. So TDS on salaries are deducted under Section 192 of the Income Tax Act, and that deduction is slab wise. On how much salary you are receiving, correspondingly the TDS is computed. So there is no defined percentage or no defined criteria than the slab rates that is available for deduction of TDS. And as all the individuals employees in a company are earning different varying salaries depending upon their capability, skill, and job profile, so it would have been very difficult to compute 25% reduction for each one of them, because this would be needed to be done headwise, because per individual, like whatever their TDS or tax liability would have been, less 25% would have to be done. So this would have given complexity in procedures basically to be followed by the company, and it would have been very difficult for them to process the entire show for TDS on the salaried individuals. So this was the third aspect why the TDS on salary would not reduce. Then I would like to add that the burden on the taxpayer would have been very higher if the TDS was not to be deducted. As I mentioned earlier, that the incidence of tax on the total income of the individual continues to continues to be the same. Like the TDS is just reduced, TDS rates have been reduced, but the incidence of tax on total income remains very much same than it was before. So
Right.
if it would have been a case like where the burden of the tax would have been bigger for these individual salary taxpayers, so then they would have to pay higher taxes at the end of the year, because less TDS have been deducted, and therefore more of self-assessment tax would have to be paid.
Right.
Moreover, the advanced tax, that is additional repercussion of less deduction of TDS, that would have a reason on these salaried individuals, because they would now be now under a compulsion to pay those TDS on salary, the advanced tax on salary every quarter, and non-payment would obviously interest and penalty under section 234 when they'll be filing their income tax returns finally.
Right.
So this was the other reason. And finally, the government, we understand the government is in a big trouble due to COVID-19 breakthrough. Okay, so they need funds, they need resources, because out of those resources only they are able to issue us the relaxations and the various benefits under the economic package that they are promising. So losing up on all fields of resource would obviously leave the government with no resource, and there would be no scope of any extensions that could be given away. So government has in a way kept this particular TDS with them, so that the benefits or the things for the individuals and the people of India could be kept continuing with these particular resources in hand.
So, Ujjwal, the finance minister also announced some revision in the definition of MSMEs in a press conference. So, we'd like to know that how has the definition of MSMEs changed?
MSME special emphasis was given by the finance minister in the economic package towards the MSMEs, and even a separate section was formed for them. Okay,
Right.
so MSME basically stands for micro, small, and medium enterprises. These enterprises form the backbone of the Indian economy. I would like to add the meaning of MSMEs with an example. That say a manufacturer like Hero Honda, so it is manufacturing bikes and automotive accessories. This
Okay.
particular manufacturer is taking up all the supplies that are assembled in their plant. So these supplies that are in form of small accessories, parts, spares, that have been procured from various industries that are operating under the MSME section. So in that way, the MSME section is the basic, like it's the most important organ of the economy these days. And this COVID-19 lockdown has really hit hard on these MSME sectors. And
Absolutely.
therefore, the special emphasis was required for them. So these enterprises are otherwise eligible for various tax benefits, easy collateral-free loans, subsidies, concessional rates, and assured payments within 45 days of delivery or rendering of their services. Okay. So by the economic package, the finance minister has felt the need that was to increase the thresholds that were earlier existing in the system, so that
Right.
more MSMEs could have been brought in this ambit, and they would have got the benefits that were extended under this MSME scheme. So I would like to mention that MSME Act came in from the 2nd of October 2006, and these limits that were for the criteria that formed for micro, small, or medium enterprise, what investment in plant and machinery or investment in equipment, depending upon whether they were manufacturing or they were service enterprises.
Right.
This limit remained the same for these 14 years, the earlier ones, and they were never changed. However, once there was an amendment bill in 2015 and 2018 that was brought in by the very first phase of BJP government, but that
Mm-hmm.
was not notified because of various inconsistencies that were existing then. Okay, so with this economic package, however, they have amended the same. Okay, so in this particular part, they have added, they have first raised the limits for investment for manufacturing and services sector, both equally, and they have added a new criteria of turnover. So now, on the basis of even how much turnover they basically generate in a particular financial year, the classification would fall. However, I would like to mention here that existing provisions under MSME, the manufacturers were qualified as micro if their investments were lower or equal to 25 lakh. That is up to 25 lakh if their investment in plant and machinery. So they classified as a micro. Second, if their investment was up to 5 crore, that is obviously exceeding 25 lakh, but up to 5 crore, so they were classified as small. Then, if their turnover, if their investments in plant and machinery was up to 10 crore, so they were classified as medium. Similarly, for services, it was 10 lakh, up to 10 lakh, then up to 2 crores, and up to 5 crores. Under the new scheme, that is the revised scheme, there has been a composite criteria that is based on the investments and annual turnover. So in the manufacturing and services sector, first of all, the distinction that was earlier existing has now been removed. So the investment limits have been increased. Like now the investment limit under micro, under both the categories, both the enterprises, remains up to 1 crore for micro. Then for small, it remains up to 10 crore. And for medium, it remains up to 20 crores. However, there is an additional criteria that is also a regulating and mandatory criteria under micro, small, and medium, that is of turnover. So under micro, the turnover would be up to 5 crore. Under small, it would be up to 50 crores, and up to medium, it would be up to 100 crores. So these criteria have been additionally introduced. However, I would like to mention in here specifically that these particular annual turnover criteria that have been added, this could even turn adverse for the people who are already under MSME sectors. Like for example, I would like to add up here, like for the diamond merchants or people who were in jewelry section or sector, who were like supplying jewelries, gems, etc. So their turnovers would have been into multiple of crores. Okay, but however, who were under the sectors of diamond merchants or who were like jewelry, who were under the jewelry sector, who had turnover into multiple of crores with investment as low as 20 crores. So now under the new scheme, they would fall out of the category of medium enterprise because their turnover would exceed 100 crores, and therefore all the benefits that have been extended under the MSME would not accrue to them. So this is basically a cripple in operation, basically I could say, for the people who are already into MSME, and an additional criteria of turnover has been added. Moreover, in the bill also that I mentioned in the bill 2015, the MSME Amendment Bill 2015, the additional turnover criteria was from starting from 5 crore, then 75 crores, then 250 crores. So basically, we do not understand the intent behind reducing what was introduced by the amendment bill that was not passed. It was rejected on various grounds. And in the economic package, those limits in turnover were further reduced. So this is basically a point of question where I guess the government needs to reconsider their decision, specifically that this criteria should be not mandatory, it should be optional, like the turnover. The criteria that was given under the revised guidelines was that there would be a composite criteria for turnover and investments. But as I mentioned earlier, that there would be instances where a person's investment would be lesser, but the turnover would be higher. So in that particular sections, the person would be losing on the benefits of MSME that are extended in this particular section. However, not to lose them would force them to re-evaluate or adjust their profits or turnover in a position so that they stay into the scheme. So that would be like basically a shifting, like not to declare the things in a proper way, or it could even lead to evasions of various kinds.
So, Joel, various extensions have been given in the compliance dates. So, we'd like to know that what are the various extensions that were announced by the finance minister in the economic package?
So under the economic package, as we know that there have been deferments, there have been extensions. So there have been like extensions in filing ITRs, there has been extension in assessments, and there has been extension in what was known as Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. Okay, so
Right.
first of all, I'll be talking about the dates of ITR, that is income tax returns, that have been extended. So government has basically extended all the due dates for all the ITRs that were due on the 31st of July and 31st of October to 30th of November. So now for FY 1920, you were to file your income tax returns by 31st July 2020. Now you will have to file those returns on 30th of November 2020. And then again, for the people who were subject to tax audit, they were required to file their ITRs by 31st of October. And now they are required to file their ITRs by 30th November. So this has been done because liquidity crisis, non-performing of businesses, non-performing of like regular government activities, so that there was a pressing need for the extension. Also, in case where the tax audited reports were to be submitted in case of assessees whose turnover or income cross the specific criteria as has been mentioned under section 44 AB, ADA, etc. So they are now required to file those tax audit reports by 31st of October. Earlier, this date was 30th of November, September
Right.
2000.
Right.
Okay, now moving next towards the assessments. As we know that these return dates have been extended, obviously the period of assessing these incomes would obviously also extend correspondingly. And therefore, the assessments that were to end on 30th of September 2020, they have been extended to 31st of December 2020. And those were to end on 31st of March 2021, they have been consequently extended to 30th of September 2021. Moving next towards the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. As the name suggests, this was a alternate mechanism of resolving the vivads that were existing between the assessees and the department. However, in the budget 2020, this scheme was first floated, which came in form of an act in March 2020. From the time that this scheme came in, it has been
Right.
into vivads, various types of vivads. I mean, there have been no fixed date. First of all, it was announced that the scheme would be like granting the interest free or the penalty free benefit to the assessees if they deposit or pay the taxes by 31st of March 2020. But
Right.
scheme came in late. This date was shifted to 30th of June 2020. Now again, in the economic package, we see that this scheme has been further postponed to 31st of December 2020. So the taxpayers who have various vivads with the department, they can now settle their claims by 31st of December 2020 without payment of any additional interest or additional penalty. So these were the three extensions that were granted under the newly announced provisions in the economic package.
Right. Ujjwal, also the last date for tax audit for financial year 1920 has been extended to the 31st October. We received a lot of queries from the tax practitioners as well as taxpayers about how can the tax audit date fall before the due date to file the income tax return. So would you like to clear the clouds on that?
Yeah, actually, this has been a question that I have been receiving from all my clients and also from various of the other professionals that I am connected with. So basically, with the budget 2020, the government brought in this provision where they added that tax audit reports were to be filed 1 month earlier than the income tax return that were applicable on the particular assessees who were liable for tax audit. The
Okay.
basic intent for making this provision was to enable pre-filling of the information in the return. As we all know that when we are filing returns for individuals in cases of salary or for HUF, we auto fetch, the information gets auto fetched on the basis of TDS that they have paid. Okay, so all the returns are basically in a way they are pre-filled. So it is very easy for the person to like just check the information and file his return. But in case of assesses where tax audit was particularly applicable, that was not the case because the tax audit the tax audit report and the date of return were both 30th September. Thus, to enable ease of doing this filing and for giving the benefit of pre-filling of information, basically a tax audit report, the date for tax audit report was kept as 30th September 2020. However, for these people, the ITR, that is the return date, was made 31st October 2020 for this particular budget. Now, for this particular financial year. Now, what was the question that was under debate, like why the professionals were also not able to figure out that whether these provisions were applicable from 1920 or 2021, was that in the memorandum, they mentioned that these provision would come in from effect from 1st of April 2020 and would simultaneously apply to AY 2021. That means
Right.
FY 1920. So as per memorandum, if we see, these provisions have correctly flown from the year 1920 FY and would consequentially apply for these this year when people will be filing their tax audit report and income tax return. However, in the Finance Act, it mentioned that these particular section 44 AB and 139, the amendments that have been so made, they would be effective from 1st of April 2020. So there was an ambiguity or non-clarity that as to from when these provision would come into effect.
Right.
Okay, so after reading this economic package, put together the budget memorandum, the finance bill and the Finance Act, we infer in our opinion that for this particular financial year, that is 1920, the tax audit return date was 30th September. Sequential ITR date was 31st October. And with this new economic package, there have been delays and extensions in the dates being provided. Therefore, the tax audit tax audit report date has been now shifted to 31st of October instead of 30th September earlier. And consequently, the ITR for the same has been extended to 30th of November as done for all the sessions alike.
Right. So thank you so much, Ujjwal. It was a very insightful session indeed. I hope whosoever is watching this video now has a better clarity about the changes that were introduced by the Finance Minister in direct tax. And for all such finance and tax related updates, stay tuned with CA Club India.